You know what I think a lot of people still don't fully realize about AI? The biggest disruption might not actually be jobs. It might be identity. Because for years, most professionals built their identity around what they do. Not just where they work, not just their salary, not just their title. Actually, who they believe they are. You see it all the time at networking events or dinners. People don't usually say, "I'm a person who works in finance." They say, "I'm an analyst. I'm a lawyer. I'm a designer. I'm a developer." The profession becomes part of their identity. And that identity gets reinforced over years. Years of learning. Years of struggling. Years of slowly mastering something difficult. Years of building confidence around being good at something. That's why I think the AI conversation is actually much deeper than people realize. Because this isn't only about productivity anymore. This is about what happens psychologically when the task that made you feel valuable starts getting automated. And honestly, I think this is where a lot of the quiet anxiety around AI is really coming from. Not just, will I lose my job, but if AI can now do the thing I spent 10 years becoming good at, then what exactly is my value now? That's a very different question. And you can already see early signs of this happening everywhere. Developers watching AI generate code faster than junior engineers. Analysts seeing reports and presentations generated in minutes. Designers seeing entire creative workflows automated. Lawyers watching drafting work become increasingly AI-assisted. Consultants realizing clients now expect faster output with smaller teams. Even if people remain employed, their relationship with their work starts changing. And when the relationship with work changes, identity changes too. I think this becomes even more complicated for younger generations entering the workforce right now. Because historically, junior roles were where people slowly developed professional identity. You learned by doing. You made mistakes. You built confidence. You earned trust. You slowly became the expert. But what happens when AI absorbs many of those foundational tasks before people even fully develop that identity in the first place? That's honestly a pretty serious question. And I don't think enough organizations are thinking deeply enough about the psychological side of this transition. A lot of companies are still treating AI adoption like, here's the new tool, go use it. But they're not asking, what does this change emotionally and psychologically for the workforce? Because when somebody's role changes drastically, or the thing they took pride in becomes partially automated, there's usually some level of identity disruption happening underneath. And I think many leaders underestimate this badly. At the same time though, I don't think the conclusion is hopeless at all. In fact, I think this transition may force people to rediscover what human value actually is. Because if AI increasingly handles task-based work, then the premium probably shifts toward things AI still struggles with. Judgment, context, leadership, communication, trust, creativity with meaning, emotional intelligence, decision-making under uncertainty, ethics, relationship building, not just producing output, but understanding what the output actually means. And honestly, maybe that was always the higher value layer of work anyway. Maybe we just buried it under years of repetitive operational tasks. One example from the article really stood out to me. A credit officer at a bank may no longer spend all day manually approving loans because AI now handles much of that analysis. At first glance, that sounds like the human became less important. But maybe the opposite is true. Maybe now the human focuses more on judgment, edge cases, understanding the customer context, ethical considerations, risk interpretation, relationship management, and knowing when the AI may actually be wrong. That's a very different kind of professional identity. And I think this is the part society hasn't fully processed yet. AI is not just changing workflows. It's changing how people define their own value. That's huge. Honestly, this article inside the Mighty AI Alliance triggered a lot of thoughts for me because it goes way beyond the usual AI will replace jobs headlines. It gets into something much deeper. What happens when the work that shaped your professional identity changes underneath you? And I think a lot of people are quietly feeling this already, even if they haven't fully put it into words yet. If this topic resonates with you at all, you're probably not alone.